Welcome back. You are watching The Fix. I'm Karima Brown, and joining me now is Northwest Premier Professor Job Mokgoro, as well as my sparring partner, Peter Bruce. He's, of course, a Sunday Times columnist. Professor Mokgoro, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, you are the premier of a very troubled province. You've been put under administration effectively for 2 years. The problem is we've got a party political system. So your party boss is your predecessor, Supremo Mapelo, who was, of course, removed but remains the African National Congress's provincial leader in that province.
That's right.
Last week, the leadership of the party spent some time there. Let's take a listen to what Job Mokgoro, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, had to say about Supremo Mapelo.
Well, when we assess, the NEC, NWC will still retreat and discuss. We are not just discussing Northwest, we are discussing the state of the organization throughout the country. That's what we do midterm. We are now 6 months, more than 6 months in office. You can't then completely start saying where the structure has been there for more than 3.5 years, because the term of a PEC is 4 years. So when they are left with 7 months, you then start saying they have not done any work. We are not interested in that. We are interested to come here and say there are challenges. We have done the SWOT analysis. There are opportunities and threats. For as long as they are divided, it means the organization won't move forward. So we are here to agitate them to do their work.
Professor Mokgoro, that is Job Mokgoro. Essentially, I mean, the subtext there is that he doesn't think that Supremo Mapelo is a problem in the province. Now, we know that that is simply not borne out by the facts. We've had protests on the streets. We have an approval rating of Mr. Mapelo of 20%. He was removed. You were brought in because of the complete and utter breakdown of governance. If he remains the party boss in the province, can you do your job?
The interesting thing is that over time, the extent of democracy with regard to the state and the party working together has really matured to very, very interesting and exciting levels. Within that framework, we have the ANC leadership and the able steering by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And I think within that framework, I would, from time to time, make an assessment of the extent to which this relationship works. And in that broad policy leadership guidance framework, I've been able to engage and interact with Chairperson Supremo Mapelo from time to time. Every week I attend meetings of officials within the province. I get invited to PwC meetings, and to that extent we've been respectful of each other, appreciating our respective roles, myself in government and him in the party.
But with respect, Professor, do you take your orders from the party boss in the province, given that the African National Congress makes policy and what the African National Congress decides needs to happen in government? And if he was removed from government, how is he fit to serve in the African National Congress?
Well, I take my cue from the framework of policies and programs of government. I know what the imperatives are. I engage with society and the broader public service. It is on that basis that by simple rational common sense would dictate the direction in which I should go. Where necessary and where appropriate, I pick up a phone or I jump into the car and say, Chairperson, these are the issues. I have not had any major hitches.
And Professor, when you placed 7 municipalities under administration last week, who did you pick up the phone to tell? I mean, who knew about it before you did it?
Well, remember we are under the IMTT, Interministerial Task.
So you would have called...
So that there is a complexity of decision making here.
Yes.
For instance, you have Minister Zweli Mkhize, who is the ultimate, leader within the local government sphere. You have the MEC at provincial government level. You have the PEC discussing matters, local government. And some of these matters would be discussed in meetings that I will be attending.
Sure.
And my assessment has been that there is irrefutable evidence on the table that these are the municipalities that require intervention. And on that basis, President Cyril Ramaphosa often reminds us of evidence-based decision-making. And these are the things that guide me. And it is on that basis that I decided I did not have to over-consult or be micromanaged.
One of the things that fascinates me, particularly when you say that we must work on the basis of evidence, you have made decisions already to return major institutions back to their line function. So, for example, the Development Corporation was taken and put into the Premier's office when Mr. Mapelo was in charge. So was the National Parks, and you've sent them back. Why did you do that? And did you ask Mr. Mapelo why he thought it necessary to take those two institutions and put it under his direct control in the office of the Premier?
I didn't have to. And can I just remind you that we are not a federal state, we are a unitary state. And within the framework of the unitary state, we got a very clear directive from National Treasury that this is the route to go. We were reminded that the Constitution makes it very clear that the roles and responsibility of the office of the Premier is to coordinate administration. And I think within that policy framework, remember the IMTT is led and coordinated by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, and I liaise from time to time with her. And incidentally, to give effect to the work that we have to do, I've entered into an MOU with Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. And within that framework, we have effected changes that the broader policy environment have deemed necessary.
You've had some pushback on the municipalities since you put them under administration. How bad is it? Describe, because I think a lot of people living in big cities in South Africa forget what living in small towns can be like and how bad things can actually get. So what did you see that made you decide this is enough, we've got to step in now and do something about it? And how bad has the pushback from that decision been, and what effect has it had on you?
Well, firstly, I think the evidence is overwhelming, and any responsible leader would say, look, the legal provisions are as follows, and we need to take action. I think it is inappropriate to say that I had some pushback. I actually pushed back, because my concern was when these municipalities were presented to EXCO, which I chair, I said, for heaven's sake, how many times have we intervened in municipalities? It's almost like Section 139 of the Constitution, which provides for intervention. It's like getting into a shop and say, here's a ready package, apply it to it, like buying discipline when you have a headache. So my pushback was as follows. When you implement Section 139 in the manner in which we have done historically, we seem to disregard the complexity and the nature of the problem. Remember, historically, the challenges around municipalities have been around service delivery issues, around governance issues. And more recently, in addition to this, we have increasingly seen political challenges on the part of councillors. So one has to take stock of that.
One of the things that, of course, is also at issue in the Northwest is we have had Northwest municipalities that were doing banking with a mutual bank, VBS. We know the majority of them are in Limpopo. There's about 22 municipalities affected. Professor Mokgoro, which municipalities in your province were doing business illegally with the mutual bank? And what were their explanations to you why they entered into those arrangements? And what have you done to put an end to it?
Well, firstly, let's remember that these developments affect a number of provinces other than the Northwest Province. Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize has actually been in control of the whole process of getting to the bottom of all this. With regard to the province, we have actually tasked the provincial treasury to investigate the matter. In addition to the provincial treasury, I think we would have seen recently the relevant portfolio committee has actually called in the various functionaries, municipal managers, to explain themselves. So the process is underway, both within the provincial context, but as well as nationally. So that as we engage with these various functionaries, we have to take stock of the broader environment within which the investigations are happening.
What is the amount of money, Professor Mokgoro, that is involved here? Because when I interviewed Soviet Lechanyane, the provincial chair of Limpopo, he wasn't able to talk to us directly about that. In fact, he was saying their investigation in the African National Congress has not yet concluded how many municipalities in the Limpopo province alone were involved. Do you have the amount of municipalities that have been involved with VBS? And most importantly, what kind of monies are we talking about? Because we know the Gogos, the Stokvelds, those people were sorted out. The Reserve Bank and Treasury came to the party, but the municipalities, completely different story. Here the accounting officers have to be held to account. Give us a ballpark figure in terms of what kinds of money we're talking about.
We're talking about 300, and we're talking for municipalities, including the
300 what?
300 million.
From Northwest municipalities.
Northwest municipalities. There are 4 of them, including the capital, Mahikeng, where I think they have invested about 82 million.
Now, this is what is interesting for me, right? So you said there's a really sophisticated relationship between party and state, but what happened was, of course, when the head of the province, in terms of party leadership, and the head of state in the province was the same person. And this happened under Mr. Mappelo's leadership. So how do you discuss accountability, who made the decisions, how those decisions were made, when you are now the head of the state of South Africa in the province of Northwest, and the man responsible for the tenure under which all of this happened sits there and is the party leader? How does those discussions happen, Professor Mokgoro?
Well, I suppose your question really points to the complex nature of our constitution, one of the best.
But give us a practical example.
A practical example is that you have a situation where something like what we're talking about happens, and the response that you get is, but where is council? Do we have evidence that council approved that? The point I'm making is, when an investment of this nature takes place, is it Mr. Mapelo who is accountable? Is it the council that is accountable?
Well, have you figured it out?
This is the issue. Well, I've just said that our provincial treasury is investigating this. I've also said that ultimately the policy boss who is seized with this matter is Dr. Zweli Mkhize.
I'm going to be naughty. I know I must wrap, but I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have confidence in Supremo Mapelo as the provincial chair of the African National Congress, or do you think that PEC must be disbanded if you want to win the Northwest elections come 2019?
Well, I think, as we all know, the NWC is going to answer that question. I think they are better seized with that matter. Again, based on evidence-based information, and evidence has been gathered, and it is being synthesized, and it will be placed before the NWC tomorrow. And we are anxiously waiting for the outcome.
So this decision is in fact going to be taken tomorrow?
well, the NWC will be deliberating on this.
Well, on that note, we will end. Thank you so very much. Northwest Premier, of course, of South Africa, Professor Job Mokgoro. Still ahead on The Fix, we speak with Transnet CEO, Dr. Popo Molefe, about the cleanup at the South African Rail Company.